Chapter 21. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Amid the cheers of many civilians, Namikaze Minato brought Rukia to the Hokage's office. Seeing this, Rukia showed curiosity on her face, a pair of beautiful eyes looked around everything and saw Minato sitting in the position of Hokage. I couldn't help but ask, "Brother Minato, is this where you work?" Minato nodded slightly and then looked at the girl in front of him. Minato suddenly thought of a question and asked, "Do you still have your power now?" Rukia blinked her bright purple eyes and slowly said, "Power? Still. But I don't know why. Since I came to this world, there has been a strange power slowly restoring my lost power of death." As Rukia said this, a slender knife with snowflakes appeared in her hand. Minato nodded slowly when he heard this. Of course, he knew what was going on with Rukia's power. It must be the system that did it. After all, Rukia is a special reward given by the system elf, and the system must be responsible. Then Rukia continued. I seem to have reached the captain-level spiritual pressure, so I can use the Zanpakuto's Bankai. Minato grasped the key point of Rukia's words. Wait, Rukia slowly closed her mouth and waited for Minato's question. Then Minato said, "You just said you can perform Bankai." Rukia nodded her head and said, "Since I came to this world, I feel that I have mastered the Bankai of the Zanpakuto." Minato nodded slowly and knew that all this was probably done by the system. This system is so considerate that Minato wants to give her a 5-star praise. In this way, if Rukia releases Bankai, her strength can at least reach the super shadow level. This is his personal maid, and now she has another identity, his top guard, just when Minato Namikaze was thinking about what tasks to assign to Rukia in the future. The door of the Hokage's office was knocked. Minato tidied himself up and slowly sat down in the position of the Hokage. He said to the Umbu ninja outside the door, "Come in." The Umbu ninja heard Minato's words and slowly walked in and knelt on one knee. Minato curiously looked at the Umbu female ninja with a rabbit mask on her face. The female ninja had long purple hair and a slim figure. Minato remembered that when he watched the Naruto anime in his previous life, there was a purple-haired Umbu female ninja whose name seemed to be Yuzuki Yugao, and there seemed to be a kidney-deficient boyfriend named Moonlight Gale. Rukia looked at Yuzuki Yugao who was kneeling on one knee in front of her curiously, wondering what she came to Minato for. Yuzuki Yugao's pretty face under the mask said calmly and coldly, "Hokage, Kakashi's team encountered an attack by Orochimaru in the Forest of Death." Namikaze Minato's face gradually turned cold when he heard this, and he was also thinking in his heart, what is going on, why is Orochimaru here? Suddenly, Minato thought of something. Could it be that his resurrection caused some changes in the plot? But then he thought of his current strength in the ninja world where the 6 paths cannot be revealed. Even the god of the ninja world, Hashirama Senju, and the Shura of the ninja world, Uchiha Madara, he is not inferior. When he watched the anime Bleach in his previous life, Captain Yamamoto's war spirit sword was very powerful. Once the Bankai was released, the entire Soul Society would probably be destroyed. Thinking of this, Namikaze Minato cast his eyes on the Umbu female ninja Yuzuki Yugao below and said, "I know, you go down first." Umbu female ninja Yuzuki Yugao heard this and said, "It's Lord Hokage." Then he disappeared. Watching the Umbu ninja disappear, turned his head to look at the girl Rukia and smiled slightly, saying, "I have something to deal with, do you want to go and see it?" Rukia nodded excitedly when she heard this. She had been in this world for several hours, except for walking on the street after coming out of Minato's house. She hasn't taken a good look yet. She also wants to know what the ninja battles in this world are like. Compared with her own power of the god of death. Who is stronger and who is weaker? Thinking of this, a pair of beautiful purple eyes looked at Minato and smiled and said, "Of course I went." As she said that, she rushed to the place where the battle took place. Minato saw that Rukia disappeared directly, and also turned into a flash of light and rushed towards the battlefield. Swoosh! Swoosh! 2 sounds of breaking through the air came, and 2 figures appeared on the battlefield. As soon as they arrived at the battlefield, the crisp and pleasant voice of the system elf came to his mind. Minato was happy when he heard it. The reward came, and he found that he could sign in at the sign-in location. Minato heard, "Say sign in silently in my heart." Ding, congratulations to the host for signing in successfully and obtaining the curse seal technique. After hearing this, Minato nodded and a curse appeared in his mind, how to use the seal. This sign-in is meaningless to Minato because he can't use it, but later some of it can be passed on to his subordinates. Then Minato returned to reality from the system. In fact, Minato stayed in the system for so long, but only 1 second passed in reality. Looking at the figure in front of him, Minato smiled, and Rukia beside him looked at everything around curiously. Chapter 22. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At this moment, Rukia, who was curiously looking around, suddenly made a sound, but her voice was a little more serious and indifferent, saying that someone was injured over there. Then she pointed in a direction, and Minato looked in the direction of Rukia's finger, and saw a boy who looked about 12 or 13 years old leaning weakly against a big tree. Minato looked carefully and found that the boy was Uchiha Sasuke, and a red-haired girl next to him was holding a kunai and was on guard. Around tightly. Seeing this, Minato flashed in front of Sakura. Sakura appeared in front of her with a tall figure, and then Rukia, wearing a death suit and holding a war spirit sword, also walked over slowly. Sakura saw that it was Namikaze Minato, and hurriedly exclaimed, "Hokage, you are finally here." Then he said, "Hokage, please take a look at Sasuke. What happened to him? We were taking the Chunin exam in the Death Forest just now, and then we were attacked by Orochimaru. In the back, Orochimaru bit Sasuke's neck." Minato also understood what was going on. "And then what about Naruto?" Then Sakura hurriedly said, "Naruto is fighting with Orochimaru, but Minato Namikaze is not worried at all. After all, he is now resurrected, and Orochimaru would not dare. Moreover, he has no hatred with Orochimaru." And then looked at Uchiha Sasuke, who was leaning on the side, and slowly walked to Uchiha Sasuke's side, looking at the strawberry planted by Orochimaru on his neck. "Oh no, it's a curse seal." Slowly took a breath and sealed the vertical style with both hands, for symbols seal, and pressed directly on the curse seal on Uchiha Sasuke's neck, and then the curse seal was replaced by the pattern of the 4-symbol seal. Realistically, if Uchiha Sasuke was not the reincarnation of Indra's chakra, Minato actually didn't want to care about him. Although Indra's chakra and Ashura can open the samsara eye by combining with each other, they can also obtain the power of the 6 paths in Madara's mouth, but this kind of thing is meaningless to Minato. Because I have a system, I still prefer the power of Science. After all, it is a star-level power, and there is also the Super Saiyan transformation. Just the transformation of Super Saiyan 1 can increase my power by 50 times, besides, even if there is no Saiyan power, there is still the power of the God of Death in the world of death, and there may be the power of Hollows in the future. The power of the Quincy and so on. At this time, Sakura looked at Minato with a worried look and asked Hokage Sasuke, "Is he okay?" At this time, Minato looked at Sakura with a face full of anxiety, and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He couldn't help but complain in his heart, "You haven't married yet, you care about her so much," and then slowly said, "There are some side effects." Without waiting for Sakura to answer, he continued to say that after all, this is the curse seal developed by Orochimaru, the first scientist in the ninja world. Ordinary people really can't solve it, unless they find Orochimaru, but Orochimaru will not help Sasuke to solve it. This thing was developed by Orochimaru from Chugo. At this time, Rukia came over and said to Minato, "Brother Minato, this little brother seems to have some injuries on his body. Do you need me to treat him with Kaido?" Hearing her words, Minato looked at her curiously and asked in surprise, "You also know Kaido?" Rukia nodded and continued, "Because I was often injured, I learned Kaido from Captain Shige no Hana." "Oh, is that so?" Minato replied, and Sakura on the side saw that there was a beautiful girl standing next to Minato. Rukia saw Sakura looking at her, smiled at Sakura, and then stretched out her right hand, and the spiritual pressure on her body surged out. Then she began to chant the Kaido spell, and gradually, as the Kaido spell was chanted, Rukia's left hand appeared green light, and as these lights merged into Uchiha Sasuke's wounds, they also recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. The recovery of the wound also made Uchiha Sasuke wake up from his coma. This was where he saw clearly that the person in front of him was the fourth Hokage. He hurriedly said to Minato, "Lord Hokage, please go and save Naruto." At this time, Sasuke also saw Rukia. Minato nodded slightly when he heard it, then looked at Rukia beside him, and rushed towards the direction of Uzumaki Naruto, Orochimaru on the battlefield. Chapter 23. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On another battlefield, Uzumaki Naruto, who was in a state of disgrace, was facing Orochimaru. Seeing the wounded Naruto, Orochimaru could not help but admire him. "You are indeed Minato's child. You have such a large amount of chakra at such a young age." Naruto was not happy to see this, but looked at Orochimaru angrily and asked, "What are you going to do?" Orochimaru chuckled and said, "It's nothing, I just want to accept a disciple." Naruto frowned when he heard this, obviously thinking about the credibility of Orochimaru's words just now. Just as Uzumaki Naruto was thinking, a gentle female voice sounded in Naruto's mind, "Naruto, don't believe him, Orochimaru is lying to you." The voice was Naruto's mother Uzumaki Kushina. He obviously had other purposes for doing that. Naruto couldn't help but sigh in his heart when he heard this. It's good to have more people. At this time, the rough voice of the Ninetales sounded, "Naruto, I will lend you my power." At this time, Naruto said to Uzumaki Kushina, "Thank you, mother, thank you Ninetales." Kushina chuckled and told Naruto to be careful, and then disappeared. Naruto looked at the Ninetales, and the Ninetales slowly said, "Your mother needs to consume chakra to appear," so she went back. Naruto nodded, his consciousness returned to the outside world, and a strong chakra burst out of his body. This chakra blew the surrounding trees rustling, and the dust on the ground was blown into the sky. The golden Ninetales chakra also rose from Naruto's body. Seeing this, Orochimaru showed a look of shock on his pale and sick face, then a hoarse voice came out of his mouth, "I can't believe it. The boy who is called a demon fox actually mastered the power of the Ninetales." Then Orochimaru burst out with powerful chakra and terrifying murderous aura, and then shouted, "Ninjutsu, snake hand." Then Naruto jumped to avoid it. Unfortunately, Uzumaki Naruto has not practiced with Jiraiya yet, and now he has only mastered the multiple shadow clone technique. Uzumaki Naruto put his hands together and shouted, "Multiple shadow clone technique." Then hundreds of Uzumaki Naruto appeared on the battlefield and attacked Orochimaru. Seeing this, Orochimaru did 2 backflips and left the battlefield, then he made a seal with his hands and shouted, "Ninjutsu, 10,000 snakes." Dense little snakes of power came out of Orochimaru's mouth. Seeing this, Naruto quickly jumped back and avoided Orochimaru's attack. At this moment, Orochimaru's face changed, and he turned around and wanted to run. A familiar voice sounded, "Orochimaru, I just arrived and you are leaving. This is too disrespectful to me." Naruto turned around and saw Minato and said happily, "Dad, you are here." Orochimaru's pale and sick face was dripping with cold sweat. The last time he fought with Minato, Orochimaru felt that Minato did not use his full strength against him. It can even be said that he did not use his true strength. This time, Orochimaru felt that Minato's strength was more terrifying than the last battle. "Orochimaru, long time no see." Minato looked at Orochimaru and greeted him with a smile. Orochimaru heard the words and quickly agreed on the surface, "Yes. Long time no see." He couldn't help but complain in his heart, "Damn long time no see, we just met today and yesterday. If he couldn't beat me, he would have fought a long time ago. Why would he talk to Minato here?" Orochimaru calmed down and quickly noticed the girl next to Minato. Orochimaru's intuition told him that the girl next to Minato was very scary and definitely not a good person, because Orochimaru suddenly found that he could not detect the chakra of the other party, but the person who could stand with Minato could be an ordinary person. Orochimaru was still thinking about how to escape. At this time, a loud noise broke out in the forest not far away. Orochimaru smiled and said, "Can I go now?" Minato glanced at Orochimaru and smiled and asked for permission. At this time, the system's voice sounded. "Found a person who can sign in. Orochimaru, do you want to sign in?" Minato was stunned when he heard this, and then he was happy in his heart. Good guy can sign in repeatedly, this is a bug. Quickly said to the system, sign in, that the system also came back and responded to Minato, ding, sign in successfully to obtain the Ryuchidong Sage mode. This made Minato unable to do it. Didn't Orochimaru still not know how to do it? How could he sign into the sage technique of Ryuchidong? Alas! Regardless, I can only say that the system is awesome. As soon as the words fell, a strange power was injected into Minato Namikaze's body by the system, and at the same time, he also mastered the practice method of Ryuchidong immortal art. With the infusion of power, Minato also activated the immortal mode of Ryuchidong. His body was covered with light green immortal art. Check pulling the package, 2 white horns appeared on the forehead, a light green line appeared on both sides of the cheeks, the sky blue eyes also turned into golden vertical pupils, and the light green chakra around them also appeared like little snakes and swirled around Namikaze Minato. Minato felt the power in his body and couldn't help but sigh. It's really a good power. Unlike the Myaboku Mountain Senjutsu, the Ryuchi Cave Senjutsu has a strong recovery and self-healing ability. The Myaboku Mountain Senjutsu is the perception of chakra. The people around him showed different reactions when they saw Minato's appearance. Rukia looked at Minato curiously with her beautiful eyes, wanting to know the reason for Minato's appearance. Chapter 24. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Naruto, who was standing by, looked at Minato with shining eyes, with a look of admiration on his face, as if he was looking at my dad. Orochimaru was shocked to see the sage mode on Minato, and he didn't know why Minato could use the sage mode of Ryukido. He couldn't even use this, and Minato couldn't help but say when he saw Orochimaru's surprised look. Want to learn? I can teach you. Orochimaru's throat rolled and he said subconsciously. Are you serious? Of course it's true, but I have conditions. Orochimaru's heart sank when he heard this, but his face was still calm. Looking at Minato, he asked calmly, what conditions? Minato didn't hesitate to say directly, I invite you to be the head of Konoha's scientific research department. Orochimaru was stunned when he heard this, and then a smile appeared on his pale face, and he looked at Minato and said in a hoarse voice, but I am a rebel ninja of Konoha. Minato smiled and continued. Those are not what you need to worry about, you just need to tell me whether you agree or not. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes slightly when he heard this, what if I don't agree? Orochimaru asked tentatively. Minato knew what Orochimaru was thinking, and smiled and waved his hand and said. If you don't agree, then don't agree. But Orochimaru couldn't speak and continued. But I have told you the sage mode of Ryuchidong. If you don't agree, you will miss this opportunity. If you want to learn the sage technique of Ryuchidong from me again in the future, it will not be so easy. This means that if Orochimaru wants to learn from him again in the future, he will have to pay more. Orochimaru began to think deeply after hearing what Minato said, and Minato did not forget to add the last fuel to the fire. Watching the dilemma of the immortal, Orochimaru Minato continued to speak. As far as I know, once the immortal arts of Ryuchi Cave are started, there is no turning back. The consequence of failing to learn the immortal arts of Ryuchi Cave is to be eaten by the White Snake Immortal or the 3 god princesses of Ryuchi Cave. Orochimaru was a little surprised to hear what Minato said, and couldn't help asking, how did you know? Minato did not answer Orochimaru's question but said to himself. You didn't go for this reason. Orochimaru, you don't want to be eaten for learning the sage mode of Ryuchi Cave. Orochimaru was horrified when he heard what Minato said, and an unprecedented fear rose in his heart. This fear was not about strength, but that the other party knew everything about you, even your inner thoughts, while you knew nothing about the other party. Orochimaru had to admit that Minato had changed and become stronger, and his mind had become more thoughtful than before. It even scared him, the cold-hearted Orochimaru, one of the 3 ninjas. You know, this has never happened before. Even when fighting against Hanzo of the Salamander, Orochimaru suppressed the fear in his heart and asked Minato Namikaze, how did you know all this? Minato knew all this because he watched the Naruto anime in his previous life. Minato smiled indifferently and said, Orochimaru, don't worry about how I know it. If you want to learn fairy arts, come to the forest outside to find me." After saying that, without waiting for Orochimaru to speak, he took Rukia and Uzumaki Naruto to the place where the battle took place. After a few jumps, he disappeared. Orochimaru looked at the background where Minato Namikaze disappeared and shook his head and sighed. The ninja world may be changing, and then jumped onto the tree and disappeared. On the other side, a huge raccoon cat roared wildly, "You damn guys, all of you, die for me." A huge palm hit the ninjas of Konoha. Kakashi saw this and made seals with both hands, "Earth escape, earth flow wall." A wall of earth rose from the ground and blocked it slightly, giving everyone a chance to perform ninjutsu. Fire escape, great fireball technique. Fire escape, dust hiding technique. Konoha great cyclone, Konoha strong cyclone. Illusion binding killing technique. The attacks of the ninjas hit Shikaku, the one-tailed beast, and a puff of smoke was stirred up. Temari and Kankuro were worried when they saw Shikaku being attacked, because it was their brother Gaara who was being attacked. Although he was controlled by the one-tailed Shikaku, Minato and the other two rushed over. Naruto shouted, "Teacher Kakashi." Rukia looked at Uzumaki Naruto in surprise, and then looked at Minato beside him, as if to say, "Is this really your son? I didn't know he was so hidden." If he was on the mission, something big might happen. Minato was helpless, and he was speechless about his cheap son. Minato was wondering if it was the influence of Ashura's chakra. Kakashi heard this and asked Naruto. "Have you seen Minato teacher?" Naruto said, "My father is behind me. Sasuke and Sakura have been rescued." Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief. This monster was the one-tailed Shikaku of the Sand Village. He continued. "I'm here, you stinky raccoon cat." Shikaku became even more violent when he saw the appearance of Uzumaki Naruto. He roared at the Uzumaki Naruto in front of him, "You stinky fox, you bastard." Of course, Naruto knew that the one-tailed Shikaku was scolding the nine-tailed in his body. He looked at Shikaku and said, "You guy, let me show you how powerful I am." Multiple shadow clone technique. After a burst of smoke, hundreds of Uzumaki Naruto appeared on the battlefield and attacked Shikaku, the one-tailed beast. The rest of them also used various ninjutsu on Shikaku. During the battle, Minato Namikaze found that Naruto didn't seem to have any other ninjutsu except the multiple shadow clone technique and Rasengan. This won't do. After all, this is his own cheap son. All he can do is use the Rasengan and the multiple shadow clone technique. Chapter 25. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Minato thought so and made up his mind to teach Naruto a few more ninjutsu after the war was over. Unfortunately, he didn't know why he couldn't teach Naruto and others his spiritual pressure. When he asked the system replied, "Different worlds and different power systems cannot be used directly with each other. The reason why you can use the Ghost Way is because this system directly infuses the power of the God of Death into your body. All the power that appears in the system is given by this system and you can use it directly." The system's faint voice came, without waiting for Minato to ask, he continued. "But other people? You need something else." At this time, the system elf recommended. "The system has launched new products. You can go and have a look." Minato's mouth twitched when he heard this, and he looked at the only 35 points on him and couldn't buy anything. At this time, Minato found that there was an extra scroll of Chakra Ghost Way learning scroll in the system. Minato's mouth twitched when he saw this. This system is doing pyramid selling. Minato clicked on the item introduction, Kido Scroll Chakra version, which contains the training methods of Heido, Kaido, and Fudo, which can be practiced using chakra. Minato saw that it took 120 points to buy the scroll, and he didn't know when he could save enough points. The chakra version of Kido was a little weaker than the spiritual pressure version, but it's better than nothing, so Minato returned to reality from the system space. I saw Uzumaki Naruto bite his thumb and quickly seal his hands. He slapped his hands on the ground, and a formation with runes appeared on the ground. There was a bang and a burst of smoke. When the smoke dissipated, a huge toad appeared on the battlefield, holding a huge long sword and a pipe in his mouth. Seeing that it was a little devil who summoned him, he couldn't help but complain. It's you, little devil, you summoned me again, tell me what's going on. Gamabunta said impatiently. The toad boss is the stinky raccoon cat in front of him, Naruto said excitedly after hearing this. Seeing this, Gamabunta couldn't help but complain in his heart, 13 years ago, I was summoned to fight the tailed beasts. I didn't expect that 13 years later, it would be like this again. Looking at the one-tailed Shikaku on the battlefield, Minato, who was observing in secret, frowned and thought. It seems that his crossing did cause a butterfly effect. In this battle, he thought that Orochimaru would lurk for a while because of his appearance, but what he didn't expect was that Orochimaru came out to make trouble so quickly, and also made the one-tailed Jinchuriki go berserk. I remember watching the anime in the Death Forest in my previous life. Only Naruto fought against the one-tailed Shikaku. Now I don't know what's going on. The leading teachers of Konoha seem to have gathered here and fought against the one-tailed Shikaku. It seems that what should happen will still happen, but it's a matter of sooner or later. I can't just rely on knowing the plot. In this case, I might as well take the initiative to change some things. At the same time, I have to find a place to sign in quickly to get rewards and improve my strength. On the other side of the battlefield, Naruto, you are really a bastard. You actually let me fight such a monster, you really think highly of me. Gamabunta said with some dissatisfaction. On the battlefield, Gamabunta and one-tailed Shikaku were facing each other. Uzumaki Naruto, who was standing on Gamabunta's head, hurriedly said, "Don't you have Kakashi and others here, Boss Gama?" He complained in his heart, "Besides, my father is also watching in the dark." The nine-tailed beast was killed instantly by my father's unmarked ninjutsu, not to mention the one-tailed Shikaku, the worst of the tailed beasts. Gamabunta heard Uzumaki Naruto say this and glanced at Kakashi and others around him. He snorted coldly and said nothing. He looked up at Uzumaki Naruto, who was standing above him with a serious face. It was obvious that he also felt it was very difficult. Suddenly, the belly of the one-tailed Shikaku swelled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. Wind style, air bomb. Just an air cannon was fired from the mouth of the one-tailed Shikaku. The air cannon alone was 4 or 5 meters in size. Such power could not be endured by a Kage-level ninja. Even a Kage-level ninja would definitely feel uncomfortable if he was hit by such a blow, let alone a Jonin or a Chunin. The destructive power of the wind-style air bomb was very strong, and the speed was also very fast. In just a blink of an eye, it reached Gamabunta. Fuck, it's too fast, there's no time to dodge. Gamabunta couldn't help but feel a little regretful. In desperation, he had to cross the long sword in his hand across his chest to block the attack. Boom! The huge explosion was deafening. The power of this air bomb should not be underestimated. It directly hit the huge and dense forest. A big pit exploded in the forest, and there was no grass growing for dozens of meters around. Kakashi and others around had already left the place after seeing this. Naruto also had a look of surviving a disaster. Just now, when he was in a life-and-death situation, he almost used the power of the nine tails in his body. Gamabunta was confused and hit the target in a wrong direction. However, it was impossible. The opponent's attack was all directed at him, and it was about to hit him. When he looked up, he saw a big pit on his right. How could it be so bad? Bunta, have you become so slow now? How can this be possible? Minato's somewhat flat voice sounded, while Gamabunta was stunned. A teasing voice came from above his head. Hearing this, Gamabunta's huge body stiffened slightly. This voice sounded a little familiar. Then he looked up and saw Namikaze Minato looking at him with a smile. Gamabunta was so scared that he couldn't help but burst out with a swear word. Fuck, are you a human or a ghost? Chapter 26. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uzumaki Naruto was a little unhappy when he heard this and yelled at Gamabunta. What are you talking about? This is my dad, how can he be a ghost? Dad, why are you here? I saw you were in danger and I rushed over. Naruto felt warm when he heard this, and Gamabunta beside him realized that you are really Minato and not a ghost. Minato felt funny when he heard this. You are a toad afraid of ghosts, who would believe it if you tell others? Minato smiled and nodded on the surface to confirm his identity again. Gamabunta couldn't help but feel relieved when he heard Minato's reassurance and asked Minato. Minato, didn't you die in the Ninetales Rebellion 13 years ago, that how could you be resurrected and appear here again? Minato was helpless when he heard this. How could he explain it himself? I can't say that I am a time traveler and I also have a system. The time traveler and the system are Minato's biggest secrets. No one can tell it, not even the closest people, so Minato decided to tell a lie to cover it up, and then he told the story of how he was resurrected by Orochimaru and how the Third Hokage was seriously injured by Orochimaru. Uzumaki Naruto on the side also said quickly. I can testify, Toad Boss, because I was at the scene at the time, and Kakashi teacher can also testify. How could Gamabunta not believe that the guy standing on his head was Minato Namikaze after hearing Minato's words? After all, in this ninja world, there is probably no one else with such a fast speed except Minato Namikaze. At the beginning, he also signed a contract with this guy, and the two fought side by side for countless times, but even so, Gamabunta still couldn't imagine it. Minato looked at the one who was lost in thought and couldn't help shaking his head and said, you should deal with the guy in front of you first. Minato turned around and looked at the little trash in front of him. Oh no, it was Shikaku. The other party's wind escape just now was transferred away by himself with Flying Thunder God, so it didn't hurt Gamabunta and Uzumaki Naruto. Looking at the one-tailed Shikaku in front of him, there is also a figure above his head. Obviously, the other party has fallen into the art of dozing. In this case, the one who controls the body now is Shikaku, right? Fuck. Who disturbed my battle? You don't know how to live or die. That the one-tailed Shikaku began to roar in an angry voice. Shikaku was furious when he saw that his attack suddenly disappeared. This was his own battle, and someone dared to interfere in his battle, so he shouted in the opposite direction. After shouting, he found that there was a figure above Gamabunta's head. Looking at the person who attacked, Shikaku felt a little familiar, as if he had seen the other party somewhere, but he couldn't remember the details, so he stopped thinking about it and shook his huge head. Minato couldn't help but be curious when he saw this. This guy actually still remembered me. It seems that this raccoon cat has a good memory. In the Third Ninja World War, the Sand Village threw the old one-tailed Jinchuriki Bunfuku into the battlefield in order to protect the Wind Country, but for some reason, during the Third Ninja World War, the one-tailed Shikaku went berserk, and it was finally controlled by the fourth Kazekage Raza. Still can't remember. In that case, let me help you. Minato said indifferently. I saw that Minato's hand was frantically condensing wind attribute chakra, and a wind attribute chakra ball appeared on Minato Namikaze's right hand. Seeing this, the one-tailed Shikaku's huge eyes shrank slightly. This technique is followed by a face full of shock. You are Konoha's Golden Flash Minato Namikaze, how did you come back to life? Then he seemed to react and said tremblingly. Seeing this, Minato did not comment, and a faint and somewhat cold voice sounded. It seems that you should remember it. Naruto, who was standing by, couldn't help but put his hands on his waist and laughed heartlessly when he saw the reaction of the one-tailed Shikaku. That's right, the raccoon cat is scared. This is the fourth Hokage of Konoha, Minato Namikaze. Don't be so nervous. I won't eat you. Minato teased. Aren't you dead? How did you come back to life? Are you a human or a ghost? The one-tailed Shikaku looked at Minato Namikaze with a serious look. Minato felt helpless when he heard this. Why did everyone ask him if he was a human or a ghost when they saw him? Then Minato smiled and said. It's time to end. Kaka around saw this and hurriedly called out to Kurenai Yuhi, Asuma and others to get away from the battlefield. Naruto Uzumaki saw this and quickly lifted the summoning technique and saw Rukia waving at him. He remembered that she came with his father, so he ran to Rukia's side without any worries and continued to cast the ghost barrier. Light green. The light spread from Rukia's body, forming a circular green protective shield. Uzumaki Naruto looked at the light green protective shield in front of him curiously, poked it with his finger, and then punched the protective shield in front of Rukia's astonished eyes, causing a series of fluctuations. Naruto on the side jumped up in pain because of excessive force. Rukia couldn't help but hold her forehead. Is this really the son of Minato? Why doesn't he look so smart? That's a ghost barrier. Did you hit it directly with your hands? Then Rukia walked to Uzumaki Naruto's side and stretched out a white and tender hand like jade. Chapter 27. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Minato saw that everyone was moving away from the battlefield, looked up at the one-tailed Shikaku in front of him, and smiled. Sorry, I don't like looking up at others, so please fall down. Then he saw Minato disappear in front of the one-tailed Shikaku, who exclaimed. What do you mean disappeared? Why didn't I feel this guy's chakra? This guy is there. The one-tailed Shikaku's huge raccoon head looked back and forth, it seemed to be looking for Minato's figure, and then a cold and ruthless voice sounded, Rasengan. A chakra ball with a diameter of more than 1 meter hit the one-tailed Shikaku's body fiercely, and the huge force knocked the one-tailed Shikaku's huge body to the ground fiercely. All the trees on the ground around were destroyed, and a large pit of more than 20 meters on the ground was formed. Then the Rasengan exploded with a huge explosion, which was deafening, and a burst of broken branches and thick smoke was raised. The Konoha ninjas around couldn't help but gasp when they saw this. Is this the strength of the fourth Hokage? Just the aftermath of the battle made us feel terrified, let alone fighting. On the other side, Rukia in the barrier looked at Naruto with surprise. This guy didn't even shout. Then Rukia said to Naruto beside her, you don't seem surprised at all that you defeated this guy called Shikaku. At this time, Naruto laughed. You don't know that there is a guy in my body who is much more powerful than this monster. Rukia looked puzzled when she heard this, because she had just arrived in this world not long ago and was not very familiar with the so-called ninja battles in this world, so she hoped that Naruto in front of her could tell him about it. Naruto saw Rukia asking him and that this sister seemed to have a special relationship with his father, so he told Rukia, especially when talking about Minato killing the Nine Tails in seconds. Naruto cleared his throat, turned around, imitated Minato, and continued. The Nine Tails was killed in seconds after the Nine Tails was killed in seconds. Rukia couldn't help but sighed. I didn't expect that brother Minato was so strong. The high-level Kido chanted by the broken beasts killed the strongest existence among the tailed beasts in seconds. Thinking of his current spiritual pressure, let alone the Nine Tails black coffin chanted by the broken beasts, his current spiritual pressure can only use the Kido and Bindo below the 85 broken beasts. On the other side of the battlefield, Minato slowly landed on the battlefield not far away. When the dust cleared, everyone saw a scene on the battlefield. I saw that the body of the one-tailed Shikaku was pierced by the explosion of the Rasengan, and half of his upper body was pierced. The yellow sand in his body slowly flowed out along his body. Everyone was shocked by this scene. Yuhi Kurenai. The fourth Hokage is so strong. We fought that monster for a long time but didn't cause any damage to him. Kakashi saw this and asked himself, I underestimated the teacher's strength. I didn't expect that he used his full strength when he was resurrected that day. Asuma, who was smoking a cigarette, also expressed his opinion. It seems that the fourth Hokage didn't use his full strength when Orochimaru attacked Konoha last time. Oh, this is youth, see? This is the battle of real men. I will also come to Konoha Tornado. Kakashi saw this and thought to himself. Not good. He quickly blocked in front of Might Guy. Damn, there are two big guys fighting over there. We two little trash should not go over there. Okay. That Might Guy heard Kakashi say this and thought that what Kakashi said was right, so he said loudly. I understand Kakashi, you are really my eternal opponent. Kakashi shook his head helplessly when he saw this. The sand on the body of Shikaku gathered quickly, and soon the half of the body that was smashed by Minato with the Rasengan was restored to its original state, and a pair of brown raccoon eyes stared angrily at Minato Namikaze in front of him. You guys really deserve to die. A huge roar came out of his mouth, and then a huge palm hit Minato, who smiled slightly when he saw this. This is interesting. Then he took out a long sword from the system space and chopped at the claws of the one-tailed Shikaku. The huge arm was cut off the moment it came into contact with the long sword in Minato's hand. Of course, the long sword in Minato's hand was forged in the Konoha blacksmith shop, because Minato felt that fighting with kunai was too short. As the saying goes, an inch longer, an inch stronger. As a good citizen who received compulsory education in the 9th grade in his previous life, he certainly knew this truth. A few more sword lights flashed across the one-tailed Shikaku, and another arm was chopped off. The tail behind it was also chopped off. Only then did the one-tailed Shikaku regain its senses. Wisdom. A pair of brown eyes stared at the blond man in front of him, and suddenly felt that he seemed to be no match for him at this point in the battle. Thinking of not hurting the other party at all, a trace of fear flashed in his eyes, so the one-tailed Shikaku opened his bloody mouth and gathered black ions in his mouth. After a while, a black sphere was gathered. Go to hell. You damn guy. Then everyone was shocked when they saw this expression. It was the tailed beast Jade. Everyone couldn't help but worry about Minato in their hearts. Then they saw Namikaze. Minato's eyes were still calm and flew towards Minato with the tailed beast Jade. I saw Namikaze. Minato chuckled and slowly raised his right hand and said, the 81st severance of binding Tao, that I saw a 3-foot air force rising from the ground, piercing through the sky and earth and blocking Minato. The huge tailed beast Jade collided with the white air wall and made a deafening sound. The violent energy spread to the surroundings, and even the trees were swayed by this force. Seeing this, the one-tailed Shikaku burst into laughter. Golden Flash. Minato Namikaze is just like this. He was still killed by my tailed beast ball. Just as the one-tailed Shikaku was daydreaming, a frivolous voice sounded. Is this your full strength? Not so good. Too weak. The smile on Shikaku's face froze when he heard it, and his laughter also stopped abruptly. Looking towards the smoke-filled place, a figure slowly appeared and walked out of the smoke. It was Minato Namikaze. After seeing that Minato had endured his strongest attack and was unscathed, he began to panic in his heart, although his strength was the bottom among the tailed beasts. Chapter 28. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But it is not something that a mere ninja can compare to. Suddenly, I thought of a tall and mighty man with a hedgehog-like hair draped over his shoulders and a pair of scarlet eyes with strange patterns, releasing a fascinating light. I just looked at that guy and lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was sealed up. Then I thought about my 9-tailed beasts, which were traded like goods and sold to other ninja villages. What about me? I was sold to the Sand Village, and then the people of the Sand Village used some bullshit iron armor seal to seal me in the body of an old monk named Fenfuku. In this way, I became a war weapon of the Sand Village. Now this guy who is fighting with me is also a pervert. He has been fighting with me for so long and his chakra has not decreased at all. Thinking of this, Shikaku, the one-tailed beast, had a bold idea in his heart. Maybe there is also a tailed beast in this guy's body, otherwise how can the chakra last so long? Although I don't know how this guy used the tailed beast ball just now, it definitely consumed a lot of chakra. How could Minato know that what he used was not a ninjutsu at all, and it didn't consume chakra at all? Minato looked at the one-tailed Shikaku in front of him with interest, wanting to see what other tricks this raccoon cat had that he hadn't used yet. Just then the system's voice sounded. Ding, a sign-in target was found. Do you want to sign in? Minato couldn't help but look at the system's prompt sound, and thought that this guy could trigger the system to sign in. Thinking of this, Namikaze. Minato said to the system, sign in. Ding, congratulations to the host for signing in successfully, and the amount of chakra obtained increased by 50%. The system's voice sounded again. Seeing that the amount of chakra obtained was increased, Minato didn't feel disappointed, and then he felt that his chakra was more than before, a full half of chakra. As the chakra surged, Minato Namikaze released a powerful chakra uncontrollably. As the chakra surged, the chakra had been materialized visibly because of the chakra doubled reward from the previous sign-ins. The golden chakra soared into the sky and formed a circular light column. The trees within 100 meters around were pressed to the ground by this force, and the one-tailed Shikaku was pressed to slide back dozens of meters. Kakashi and others saw this and quickly performed Earth Escape ninjutsu to defend. Earth Escape, Earth Flow Wall. In an instant, a half-meter thick and 4-meter high earth wall rose from the ground, blocking everyone in front of them. Rukia on the other side was also surprised when she saw this, asked the excited Uzumaki Naruto next to him, "Is this the chakra you said you need to perform ninjutsu?" Naruto nodded excitedly when he heard this, and Rukia nodded slightly. "Fuck. This is the chakra that a human has, more than my chakra. This guy is a monster. I, one-tailed Shikaku, am measuring this with my chakra. I am willing to call you Katanla." As Minato retracted his power, the surrounding smoke and dust fell to the ground. Looking at the one-tailed Shikaku in front of him, he smiled and said, "I'm sorry that my chakra suddenly went out of control just now." The one-tailed Shikaku glanced at Minato with his raccoon eyes, thinking that you are a bad guy, I don't believe you. Then he slowly disappeared. Minato was slightly stunned when he saw this, and then he reacted and smiled. This guy, one-tailed Shikaku, admitted his fear and ran away. The spectators on the side were stunned when they saw this, and they rubbed their eyes quickly, fearing that they had seen it wrong. Then Kakashi was the first to react and said, "Let's go. Let's go and take a look." At this time, the Sand Ninja team, Temari and Kankuro, who were watching from a distance, saw this, looked at Minato and hurried to the unconscious Gaara. After checking Gaara, they found that he was not in danger of life, but just exhausted from fighting. Then he thanked Minato Namikaze in front of him. "Thank you, the fourth Hokage." He bowed slowly to Minato again. Minato didn't feel strange when he heard the other party call him the fourth Hokage, because when he was fighting with the one-tailed Shikaku just now, Shikaku revealed his identity, so Temari and Kankuro knew that they were the fourth Hokage of Konoha. Now Temari was worried, afraid that the man in front of them would not let them leave. This man is not even the opponent of the monster in Gaara's body. Didn't you see that the one-tailed Shikaku was scared and released the tailed beast and returned to Gaara's body just now? Minato smiled and waved his hand to signal the other party to leave. Open. Temari looked deeply at the sunny and handsome man in front of her. She signaled Kankuro next to her, picked up the unconscious Gaara on the ground, then jumped up and jumped onto the tree. Before leaving, she did not forget to look at Minato, then turned around and disappeared in the distance with a few jumps. At this time, Naruto came from a distance, and his voice was shouting, "Dad, you are so handsome." At the same time, he waved his hands and danced. Rukia saw Minato's beautiful purple eyes, looked up and down at Minato, and asked with a worried look, "Brother Minato, you are not injured?" Chapter 29. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing Rukia in front of him, she felt warm in her heart, and she couldn't help but pat her little head with her hand, and then she said to Kakashi, Mitarashi Enko and others who came over, "It's over, let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, Minato Namikaze took Rukia and Uzumaki Naruto and disappeared. Seeing this, Kakashi also said to everyone, "Are your students okay? I still have to go find Uchiha Sasuke and Sakura." After saying that, he disappeared from everyone's sight in a few jumps without waiting for everyone to answer. Sarutobi Asuma, who was holding a cigarette in his mouth and looked like an uncle, couldn't help but say, "Let's go back too." Everyone returned to the village after hearing this. Minato Namikaze saw that it was getting dark, so he took Uzumaki Naruto and Rukia to eat. Walking on the street, everyone saw Uzumaki Naruto next to Minato, and they all showed disgust. He was also constantly cursing and talking in a low voice. Minato was so powerful that even though the other party was talking in a low voice, Minato could hear it clearly. He couldn't help but frowned, and his heart sank. He felt that his predecessor was really a stupid fool. It was a waste of a good woman like Kushina. She actually lost her life for such a village. As a time traveler, Minato knew what kind of life Naruto had lived in the past 12 years. It can even be said that he was not as good as an orphan in an orphanage. Turning his head to look at his son, he saw Naruto walking in a daze. His tender little face was full of loneliness, and his pair of blue eyes had lost their former color. Minato was not a saint, and he would not repay evil with kindness. Now these poor people insulted Naruto indiscriminately, and even scolded him, the fourth-generation Hokage. At this moment, Minato suddenly stopped, and his chakra burst out suddenly, causing the ground around Minato and the other two to shatter. The spider web-like crack spread around, and then the terrifying killing intent was released. The poor people of Konoha who were whispering about it turned pale under the cover of this killing intent, and their minds were in a trance as if they were going to be in hell in the next moment. Minato became famous in the ninja world in the Third Ninja World War. I don't know how many people he killed. These killing intentions were honed from the mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Besides, Minato really planned to kill these guys. Just when these villagers were about to have a mental breakdown, a hand suddenly pulled the corner of Minato's clothes, then looked up at Minato and said, "Okay, Dad, let's go eat." Minato glanced at Rukia beside him, and Rukia smiled and nodded. Minato looked at the Konoha civilians lying on the ground indifferently, and then called the two to walk forward. Everyone looked at Minato's back as he walked away, and said with resentment, "Damn it, the fourth generation of Hokage. The third generation Hokage never cares about these things." If Minato knew what the Konoha civilians were thinking, he would definitely say that the third Hokage certainly wouldn't care about that. The mastermind behind all this that led to Naruto's tragic ending was the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen. And his old partner, the Namikaze Danzo. On the other side, Sarutobi Hiruzen, who had just come out of the ninja hospital, was sitting at home, surrounded by three old guys, who were Sarutobi Hiruzen's old classmates and Konoha's advisory elders, Mito Kato-en and Utatane Koharu, and Shimura Danzo, who was known as the Dark of the Ninja World. Sarutobi Hiruzen took a long puff of smoke and said, "Minato is back now. What do you think of this? And I feel that there is something fishy about Minato's resurrection." Seeing that his three friends didn't answer, he continued, "I feel that Minato is different now than before. He is a bit more sharp and mature than before." The three were speechless after hearing this. Minato had only sealed the Nine Tails and died, but his soul still exists. After being locked up in the belly of the god of death for so long, isn't it normal for him to have some changes? At this time, Sarutobi Hiruzen finished speaking, looked at his three friends, looked at him with sympathy, and couldn't help but said, "Are you listening to me?" Shimura Danzo, who had been resting with his eyes closed, slowly opened his only remaining eye. Looking at the three people, he said, "I don't know what you said. I only know that today in the Death Forest, according to the spies of the route, the information monitored was that Namikaze Minato defeated the one-tailed beast Shikaku of the Sand Village alone in the Death Forest." Everyone's face sank when they heard this, and Utatane Koharu hurriedly asked, "What should we do? She doesn't want Minato to step down like this after he comes back. She hasn't sat in the position of the Konoha elders group long enough. Because she is an elder of Konoha all these years, she has given herself the family gained a lot of benefits, making it an important family in Konoha, and the key is that they don't have to go to the battlefield." Chapter 30. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sarutobi Hiruzen saw that several of his old classmates were looking at him. He felt helpless but still said, "Let's wait and see what Minato wants to do." "Hiruzen, you are too weak. Do you know that today Minato Namikaze released murderous intent against the civilians of Konoha in the village?" said Shimura Danzo angrily. Seeing this, Utatane Koharu and Mitoman did not speak. It was obvious that these two old comrades wanted to wait and see. Danzo snorted in dissatisfaction, but did not say anything else. Sarutobi Hiruzen heard Danzo questioning him like this, and for a moment his old face was a little embarrassed and said gloomily, "Danzo, don't forget that I am the Hokage." "Humph, Hiruzen, you will regret it," Danzo said with an ugly expression on his face as if he had urinated. Sarutobi Hiruzen saw Danzo surrender, his face was a little better, and then he said, "Everyone should ignore Minato for now, and wait and see what happens. I believe everyone has seen it." Tanan Koharu and Mitoman nodded quickly, and then said, "You should have seen that Minato's personality has changed to a certain extent. I don't know if he will attack you." Danzo snorted coldly, and Sarutobi Hiruzen stared at Shimura Danzo with his old eyes, and then he said that Danzo didn't let you spread Naruto's identity back then, but you didn't listen. Now Minato is back, guess what he will think? Danzo looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen, who had a gloomy look and a cold face, and suddenly laughed, and the laughter gradually disappeared. Sarutobi Hiruzen saw Shimura Danzo burst into laughter, and said with a gloomy face, Danzo, what are you laughing at? Then Danzo looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen and said. I laugh at your shamelessness, you are really worthy of it, Hiruzen, you are really both a boss and a boss. Hiruzen, don't think I don't know. If you hadn't done it deliberately, Uzumaki Naruto's identity would never have been spread, and he wouldn't have been praised as a demon fox by the common people. After all, you are the strongest Hokage in Konoha's history. Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki trust you very much. They entrusted their only child to you, but you, how did you do it? You want to be the only light in Uzumaki Naruto's heart. You not only occupied the house that Minato and his wife left for Uzumaki Naruto, even Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki, the commissions for the tasks they have done over the years, have been plundered by you. Danzo's words can be said to be true to his sadness over the years and Sarutobi Hiruzen's hypocrisy. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at him, and Shimura Danzo's eyes were a little surprised. He didn't expect that his old friend had such an IQ. Shimura Danzo looked at Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes, and felt a little wrong in his heart and continued. What is that look in your eyes? Then Sarutobi Hiruzen said, I just didn't expect you to be able to guess some of my thoughts. Danzo secretly complained when he heard this. We have been classmates and old comrades for decades. How could I not know some of your thoughts? Then Sarutobi Hiruzen continued. Danzo will give you a tip, don't investigate privately or cause trouble for Minato. Danzo snorted coldly when he heard this, and left without saying anything. Seeing this, Koharu Utane, who was standing by, greeted Mito Kato-en and left as well. Only Sarutobi Hiruzen was left in the compound. Minato brought Uzumaki Naruto and Rukia home, only to find that he had no money. Although his house was coming back, he had no money now. What should he do? It seems that he has to find a chance to get back the rewards for the tasks done by his predecessor from the old man of the third generation. I remember that he seemed to have done several S-level tasks, and there were countless A-level tasks. I actually have no money now, which really fulfilled the words of the sledgehammer player in the previous life game. A man with money is a man, and a man without money is hard to be a man. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I used the Flying Thunder God technique to get 100,000 Ryo in the Hokage's office. I saw the civilians in Konoha looking at me with fear on the street, but Minato didn't care. He went into the store, bought some vegetables and fruits, and went back. After dinner, Minato fell into deep thought. There were only 2 rooms in the 3-person room. Minato smiled at Uzumaki Naruto, who smiled and greeted the 2 of them. Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye, Sister Rukia. Then he ran outside. Seeing this, Rukia also waved at Naruto. Rukia blinked her beautiful eyes at Minato and smiled and said, Brother Minato, I'm going to rest first. See you tomorrow. Minato smiled and went back to his room. The next morning, Minato woke up and put on his clothes, and saw Rukia coming out of the kitchen with 4 fried eggs and 2 slices of ham. Then he said to Minato, Brother Minato, please sit down first. I will fetch the porridge in the kitchen. Minato looked at the food in front of him and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Isn't this the life he wanted in his previous life? A wife, children and a warm bed, don't they all have it now? It's a pity that he traveled through time too late and didn't experience the first-hand experience of Uzumaki Kushina. Thinking of this, he looked at Rukia who was holding eggs for him, and an evil thought arose in his heart. Seeing this, Minato quickly stopped and calmed his mind. After a hurried breakfast, he performed Flying Thunder God and arrived at the door of the Hokage's office. As soon as he walked into the Hokage's office, he saw Sarutobi Hiruzen, Shimura Danzo and others. Konoha F4 was sitting there calmly. Sarutobi Hiruzen sat on the first Hokage throne. 2 elderly men and women were already sitting on both sides of the sofa. There was also an old man with bandages all over his body and a cane at the door. Seeing this scene, Minato couldn't help but curse inwardly, what a bunch of old people.